Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and this is episode 13 of my video cast, Politics 2100. And I'm calling this episode The Responsibility Shirking Right Wing, Projection and Preemptive Blame Shifting. So, the last video, episode 12, was about the type of personalities, the two different main personality types, in broad strokes that you might find in the far right movement and in now the current Republican Party and leadership. But I think on a more practical level, that's kind of a descriptive generalization. And on the ground, in terms of political strategy, it's probably more important to discuss actual typical strategies that are being used by these individuals and one of them, which gets some commentary and some people sort of call it out in an offhanded way, saying projection. So basically it's a psychological mechanism where you see in the world outside you what actually preoccupies you, or what actually is your particular psychological interest, or either something that something you're repressing, something you're not wanting to fully recognize it in yourself as a thought, so you attribute it to someone else. Okay, you project it out into the world. In some theories of psychology, and a number of them plausible ones, that we're often doing this in a kind of we discover the world by sort of putting out into the world our ideas about it, and then if we're sort of focused on reality, we recognize that our projection was wrong, our ideas were wrong. So I mean, that's one idea. It's not the only one that you can imagine for how we normally process. Our inner world interacts with the outer world. But projection as a defense mechanism is this idea, as I said earlier, that we're uncomfortable with something, okay, and we see it coming from outside us rather than coming from within us. And so this is something that's very typical of the right wing. In fact, they are very aggressive in their political operation in using projection, okay? And so this thought came to me as I was listening to a video by Farron Cousins, and I'll put the link in the description box, about a Minnesota GOP strategist and donor, a wealthy man who is being investigated for child sex trafficking. And this is not the first time that a higher up in the Republican Party is being investigated. And this is not only the first time, they're concurrent. In other words, there's Matt Gaetz in Florida. There's this man in Minnesota that seems to be a stronger case for this man in Minnesota. And so, and he's a very, very connected donor and strategist for the GOP. He's a very wealthy man. And there are, I think, at least six accusers, six victims who are have given evidence in this case. And so it seems like a pretty, it's likely that he needs to go through the due process and the law, but it looks likely that he actually did this sex trafficking, and it sounds very, very sordid and very, and criminal, obviously. And so this level, so we see this all over and over again, but we also see, and it's probably not lost on you that the main conspiracy theory of the right wing is QAnon or QAnon related conspiracies that say that the Democratic Party is run by pedophiles and who are doing child sacrifice and very gruesome. I mean, I think you know some of the details. I don't need to go into it. I can put a link in the description for the QAnon, the twisted QAnon fantasy that is projected out onto the Democratic Party, and it's an unbelievable fantasy, and it's amazing that there are probably tens of millions of Americans who supposedly believe this. Okay, and it's anyway, it motivates. It's a potential motivation for lots of political violence, because if you thought genuinely that there were powerful people, excuse me, let me drink some water. If you thought there were powerful people who had who were doing this child sex trafficking ring and were child sacrifice, I mean, you would want to expose them and fight against them, and that they had, you know, hidden power. There's a lot of echoes of the anti-Semitic ideas about a sort of a shadowy elite. It's not called out explicitly in the QAnon lore, the QAnon legend, but it has the structure of the shadowy elite that is behind everything, kind of thing. So anyway, so this is often in the context, not often, but sometimes in the context of some commentary by often left-wing people. They say, oh yeah, this is projection. Okay, so people describe when they also account for the fact that you have not only the former president that plausibly abused underage women, possibly, we don't know, in the context of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We don't know that. It might be revealed, but he had some relationship with them. So this cult that is accusing the opposition party of what their hero, in other words, they think their hero is investigating the thing that he most likely might have done in the past, or might have had some involvement in, or there's certainly the tinge upon him, the rumor might go around that in fact he has not exactly this bizarre fantasy that could really never be, or you know, it's unlikely to have ever been, you know, happened by any group of people. But anyway, but that the person that they say is the hero, they are defending him by projecting out into the other, or they're saying that no, we are the heroes and we're with this hero guy but the hero guy is the one, or one of the ones, who might actually have done something illegal in this area of, and so and they talk about saving the children as being, you know, this it's a noble, obviously it's a noble cause to save the children if there was something to save them from in this area, but it's based on I would call it a psychotic level fantasy about politics and about public figures, and it's shared widely, unfortunately, in a way that's very toxic and damaging to the fabric of our society and social trust overall, and also just political discourse. And so, and they might be listening to this and think, oh no, he's part of it now. He's defending the people we're accusing. So they would be turning what I was saying against what I saying that I'm fronting for this terrible conspiracy, because everything is because they are so, it's fixed. I have such fixed ideas about this, and we're talking here about, and this is something that again I should do another video about the psychotic, and this is something that's been talked about and written about by some psychiatrist regarding Trump and his cult. But anyway, it's a level of that goes beyond the defense mechanism of projection. In terms of its weirdness, and it's total implausibility, or extreme improbability, let's say, as a theory of how things work. So anyway, but this is even though if you even go beyond QAnon though, which as I say, it's the psychotic level ideas about political figures, the modus operandi of Trump, among other things, in other words, one of his political skills was to constantly project out and put on the defensive either his imagined opponents or actual opponents, or the press, or the discourse in general, that he would actively accuse others of doing something where he would likely be accused of himself. So in a sense, as he became able to own, when he had a platform, when he had when he had a bigger platform that could dominate the news cycle, he was able to preemptively shift the blame, and that's why I call it preemptive blame shifting, for things that he might be involved with, or that people might reasonably ask him about and investigate about him, that he would say, it's the other people that have this issue, and it also this is another video to make about the childishness of that. In other words, that he is innocent and he is without blame, and it's everybody else that's to blame. And so, and this is also a function. QAnon also does a similar thing in terms of the attraction of QAnon as a, it's a bizarre idea, to be attracted to, but it creates a world of heinous monsters and innocent victims and innocent and unbelievably noble heroes, cartoonish heroes, but in a fantasy. None of it is real, and so it creates but the identification of the believers in it, they believe that the innocents are being victimized by these monsters, and they are either the heroes discovering it, or they are the innocents along with these victims, and they are but they're on the side of the heroes, okay? And this is when it's the reverse. In other words, that they are serving the monsters, okay? And this is where the point of this video, in some way, in terms of its political point, is that the Democrats or people in the press who are not necessarily Democrats, but they are supposed to be defending our public discourse, okay, and the quality of that discourse, and that doesn't mean necessarily supporting one party or the other, but right now, statistically, the Democrats are more likely to be telling truthful things than the Republicans, because the Republicans are led by a sociopath, by a psychopath, actually, a pathological liar, and they have become used to creating a narrative, creating out of whole cloth a discourse that floats up above the reality of society and the reality of concerns of the general voters or the people at large, but it wraps up their base and the people who and certain parts of the media in these conspiracy theories of various kinds. Now, some of those conspiracy theories are a lot more plausible than Q-Anon, but they are also, based on a very thin and biased reading of, or just fabrications, a lot of fabrications, and then a biased reading of reality. So, but anyway, so the point of this video, though, is to take the word projection. You have to have taken a psychology course often to use the word projection and feel comfortable talking, using it. And there's an innocent quality. I mean, even though projection can be used in very unpleasant ways and very, and also, projection is in terms of the personality types that I was discussing and the personality disorders, even that are associated with the two types of right-wing personality that Altemeyer, he didn't use the word disorder, but there are tendencies in the area toward disorder. They're extreme personalities in the right wing, the authoritarian right wing. But anyway, so these two types of personality both use what looks like projection, or often used as projection, or what I'm calling preemptive blame shifting. And the reason why there's two different words is because there's these two types. They're mixed up together in the same movement and the same political formation, but there's a slightly different, but there's a more than slightly different motivation and dynamic involved. So they both have, like, people who are paranoia is often, certainly a theory of paranoia, and it's often thought that various forms of paranoia, or in paranoia, people often project their own concerns. In other words, or paranoia is itself a psychotic state. People can be paranoid and be partially paranoid, not entirely paranoid, but anyway, but they're looking, they're observing, and they're seeing their what they think is out in the world is really inside them, okay? And so their fears, they see their fears outside, and they say, aha, that's really real, they're coming to get me, or whatever it is, whatever their paranoia involves. And so it's often in the psychoanalytic word is projection, but it's also accepted by non-psychoanalytic psychiatrists and psychologists. But anyway, so that is a dynamic there. But then the other group, so what I'm saying is that the base, the authoritarian followers, they have a tendency toward paranoia, and some of the leaders as well do, but there are also the sociopaths and psychopaths are often involved in wrongdoing, or in organizing wrongdoing of various kinds. They're often organized in schemes, okay? And they're scheming to do something that they have an awareness of, that someone if they find out about it, they will try to stop them, or they might, if it's illegal, might get arrested for it, and prosecuted for it. And so that awareness of that they know that they're lawbreakers, okay? And so their form of projection is, sometimes it could be the type that I was describing of paranoia, and if they're under extreme duress and they realize that the cops are out to, or whoever the cops are, but the investigators, the victims of their wrongdoing are onto them, okay, they might get paranoid in terms of, but also as a ruse, okay, a ploy, as a game to get out of something, they will say no, it's someone else, okay. They might even turn on each other if they're a part of a Confederates and they feel like they don't trust their other gang members, and they say no, it's the other guy, it wasn't me. But also if they see anyone plausibly, just to sort of to throw up a cloud of dust, okay, like the octopus that throws up a cloud of ink. So my contention in this video is, and the reason why I'm emphasizing it, is that I think the good people, okay, in our society, and I mean Democrats are the better party currently in the United States. I have many criticisms of them. I think I support a faction of them, not necessarily the whole party. But I think that in general they are sort of representing some of the better impulses of humanity. Or at least they pretend as such. They need to be called kept honest, okay, and we're not doing that, unfortunately, enough. But also just other forces in the society who are not necessarily affiliated with any party are all being affected by this neo-fascist, right-wing authoritarian turn in the Republican Party, and especially when they control much of government in the United States, and they're trying to get into government again by rigging the system. But anyway, they have used this preemptive blame shifting and projection, mixture of the two, very effectively to keep the media and keep the Democrats on their heels, okay? And I think that it needs to be called out. It needs to be not just when it happened, almost preemptively. For instance, in speaking in some speech, for instance, Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or any political leader, really, it doesn't have to be even the most powerful ones, could box in the Republicans by anticipating their or at least put a footnote in there that that they will be accused of the thing that they are accusing the Republicans, and they need to point this out, this quirk of the Republicans, in order to, I think, be more effective in they're giving their message out and also combating the message of the Republicans. And this obviously presupposes, as I think I mentioned in another video, and I will be continuing to mention in future videos, this presupposes that the Democrats want to fight the Republicans and want to win against the Republicans and want to serve the American people. And that's not clear that they always do, okay? And it's not clear that they are fully committed to that, in part because of just the financial relationships they have to the donor class versus the people at large. So it's in terms of their dual loyalty, where their primary loyalty in terms of the corporate Democrats, unfortunately the most powerful ones currently, is to mega donors and to corporations. But it's not. I don't know if that. I can still appeal to reason. I can appeal to political what I'm talking is political common sense, and just in terms of their survival, and this, not only their survival of our democracy. So I'm speaking directly to them, and even if they do take money from big corporations and they pal it up with lobbyists from Exxon or from Raytheon or whatever, that that common sense might at some point set in for them. So anyway, so I just wanted to. I will put in links in the description of a couple examples of this type of projection. I mean, obviously this case with this donor in Minnesota, and also obviously Q-Anon is, you can find numerous resources about Q-Anon, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. This means of projecting, it's not only about heinous crimes that would be prosecutable by decades in prison or whatever. I mean that like those suggested by QAnon are actually probably done by this guy in Minnesota. But anyway, so if you found this video interesting or you liked it, please like and please subscribe to this channel. Also, please share your comments in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.